Welcome to We Are Old, Get Over It, the podcast where we celebrate the wisdom of age and maybe a little grumbling too. I want to start out by welcoming our audience for this week's podcast. I've been working a long time to try to get someone with some expertise in the field of senior centers. And I had to twist the arm of, I think, your PR person to get an appointment with my guest today. My guest is Jaclynn Faffer. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, Faffer.
Okay, Faffer. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. And Dr. Jaclynn is the president and CEO of the Baker Senior Center in Naples, Florida. And she's going to give us some background on what senior centers can do and how they can benefit seniors, using her senior center as an example. But at the end, I want to make sure that we talk about the fact that there are senior centers all over the United States. And if you don't have a senior center, there are places where you can go that will provide some of the services. What I always like to do is start out with a little quote. And this first quote is a very short one. There was absolutely no reason for a senior to be bored or lonely when they have a senior center to go to. And with that, I'm going to ask, can I call you Jaclynn or Jackie? What do you think? Jackie. I like that's so much easier. Okay, Jackie, I'd like you to just give a little introduction to about yourself to the audience. And then from there, we can just go into talking about the benefits of senior centers. And you can, of course, use your senior center as an example.
Thank you.
All right. Go ahead.
So my background is in social work. I have both a master's and doctoral degree in social work. And I've been in the field many years. I don't want to say how many, but I've had the pleasure and the benefit of working in many different areas of social work. I've done clinical practice, I've done research, but primarily I've worked in community agencies, which is exactly where I am today, because I feel that's where I can have the biggest impact.
Okay.
So you want to know about senior centers?
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about how your senior center came about and about the facilities themselves. And then we kind of can go through the kind of benefits such as socialization, what they provide to the seniors. So maybe an overview of what a senior center is and the kind of items that it has to offer, which are many and variable.
I'm pleased to do this. So our senior center itself is 11 years old, and it's a baby when you think about the fact that senior centers really began in the late 19th and 20th century. They were settlement houses, and they began in urban areas, social clubs, churches, YMCAs, YMHAs, and they were a place that offered gatherings for recreation, services for older adults, as well as advocacy for the needs of older adults. Post-World War II, there was a growing number of older adults who had increased leisure time to spend, and they were looking for clubs, and they were looking for places where they could have activity programs. Many at that time were volunteer-run and focused on socialization, crafts, games, and outings, and were really the precursors to what we see today in the world of senior centers. In the 1970s and 1990s, with federal funding, they began to become a little bit more, quote-unquote, professionalized. And you began to find people with social work degrees, recreation degrees, running the clubs and the senior centers. And they were multi-purpose. Many of them offered meals through the Older Americans Act, health screenings, transportation assistance, and education. Our senior center here in Naples, developed as most do by the need of the community. And it's amazing when you think we're only 11 years old, given the demographics of a place like Naples, Florida. I received a call from a colleague of mine up north who said his mother was moving to Florida and she was looking for the local senior center. I thought to myself rather arrogantly that, what's the matter? You can't use Google? So I looked on the internet for a senior center in the greater Naples area, and I couldn't find. I did a little research, and lo and behold, Collier County did not have a senior center. At the time, I was the head of a small family service agency, and I approached my board, and I shared this with them. And they said, well, let's see, maybe we should start one. But prior to that, we wanted to make sure there really was a need. So we hired the FGCU Department of Social Work, and they did a need.
What's FGCU?
Sorry, Florida Gulf Coast University.
Okay, which is a fairly new university, started maybe 20 years ago or so?
About, yes.
Okay.
And they have a great Department of Social Work. And they agreed to do a needs assessment of the greater Naples area to see if indeed we needed a senior center. I always remember the first line of the study that the head of the study summarized. She said, older adults are alone and lonely. So we started a senior center in January 2014. And we started with perhaps the most traditional service a senior center could provide, and that was a hot lunch. We didn't know how many people would show up, 8, 80, 200. Well, in fact, 80 people walked through those doors that first day.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was amazing to us.
Absolutely amazing.
Yes. So what's even more amazing, that we had planned on opening just 2 days a week, Wednesday with lunch and activities, and Friday with cards and games, no bingo. We wanted to be different, and computer training. Within a few weeks, we were open 5 days a week. And by the end of that year, we had close to 700 members.
Wow. And it's not expensive to belong to a senior center, correct?
It varies from city to city, state to state. We currently charge $100 a year. And with that $100, you get all the programs and services. We recently added a $5 charge to our flagship program, the Hot Lunch. And it just so happens today is Wednesday, and today we have 220 people registered for our Wednesday
Wow,
lunch.
that's amazing, because in Florida in particular, this is not the season that the most people are here. All the snowbirds are gone. So what do your numbers increase to when they are actually here?
At the peak, it could be up to 400. And at that point, we have 2 seatings.
Wow. How do you have a facility large enough to handle that? Give me a little background on your facility and what it includes and the kind of services or activities that you provide.
We started out in an office building with probably 6,000 square feet.
Okay.
And then we proceeded to take over almost the entire office building at 12,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we are in our second year in a new 30,000 square foot building that we built in North Naples. It's on 13.7 acres. And the building is kind of unique, and we are kind of unique in the world of senior centers because we offer comprehensive services, not only the traditional senior center services.
Well, let's first talk about the comprehensive services, since that's an unusual thing that most senior centers don't offer. And then let's go into discussing what people can expect at a regular senior center.
Yes.
Okay.
We've been described as a senior center on steroids. So we have 3 pillars of service. The first pillar is the senior center itself, and that is basically to provide education, ameliorate isolation and loneliness, lots of wellness programs, Tai Chi, yoga, art, music, you name it. That's on the first floor.
Okay.
And we have 350 volunteers. And although the first floor is supervised and managed by professionals, it's the volunteers who deliver the wide range of services, which we'll get into a little bit later.
Okay.
On the second floor, this is where we become a little bit more unique. On the second floor, we house our second 2 pillars. The first is clinical services, and that includes mental health counseling for adults 60 and over who are experiencing what we call life cycle issues. These are not the seriously and persistently mentally ill person that requires a lot of medication and 24-hour supervision. These are people who are dealing with loss and grief, complicated relationships, little anxiety, little depression, becoming a caregiver, dealing with illness. And these services are provided by licensed clinical social workers. Part of clinical services also houses our case management program. Case management allows seniors to age in place safely and with dignity. This is where we work with our most frail community members and our special populations. Currently, we have 16 Holocaust survivors in the program, and we are working with close to 30 homeless senior women.
Wow.
And
That's a lot of responsibility.
And we've been pretty successful in helping the senior women find housing.
That's great.
And the remainder of the 160 clients that we see in case management have financial issues, are struggling because of frailty. They need services put in place. And here the staff is credentialed, trained social workers and case managers. So that's clinical services. The third is our Brookdale Cognitive Health Center. And this is where we provide evidence-based services to individuals who have mild to moderate stage dementia, who are living at home and cared for by their caregivers. It is not daycare. It is a 4-hour program from 10:30 to 2:30 every day, where they receive a hot lunch and they receive a structured program of engagement that keeps them communicating, keeps them engaged, light physical activity, and every day they have lunch. And this department is staffed by, again, licensed clinical social workers, and credentialed music therapists. In addition to the respite programs for the person with dementia, we have caregiver support groups, educational programs for the caregivers, and extensive education for the community as to how to work with and respond to someone with dementia. And these are the 3 pillars, and this is what makes us unique in that we are housed under one roof, all the services. I've thought about us recently as a little bit like a continuing care community, because since we've been in business 11 years, it's not unusual for us to see someone who started out here as a healthy, cognitively well member or even a volunteer. And as they've aged, they've progressed and perhaps developed cognitive issues. And now they're upstairs in our cognitive health program.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And it
Continue.
makes it that much easier for the family and for the person because they already know us.
That's correct. Well, the extra pillars you're talking about, the 2 pillars upstairs, are funded through what? In other words, you have a very large facility, and I don't think that the county or the state of Florida is providing those services. So speak to me a little bit about that and the differences. One of the advantages that you have here in Collier County versus other areas probably that won't have the finances available?
I don't really think it's an advantage, to be frank, because the other way we're unique is that the majority of senior centers across the United States, including in Florida, receive a great deal of support from their county, municipality, from the state.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, I'm happy to mention that. We're blessed in that we live in a very philanthropic community. But the philanthropy, as it is nationwide, is geared more towards children, youth, and adolescents. It's difficult to raise money for seniors for many reasons, some of which are obvious. People see it as the end of the road, which of course it isn't. Kids are cute. Animals are cute. We all
I think you're cute. It's okay.
we all like to go to
Not that
theater.
I'm calling you a senior citizen. I'm not calling you a senior citizen.
Please don't. Although we define senior citizen, older adult as 60 and above.
Okay.
And we know in Naples, 90 is the new 60. So, but our budget, which is at this point $4.1 million, 69% is supported through philanthropy. But
that's a big number.
It's too big. Yeah. It keeps me up at night. It's too big. We do get a little funding from the county for our case management program. And we also get funding from the state, or a little funding, $200,000 for our respite program for scholarships, and $110,000 for mental health. But what is rather unique about our budget as compared to other areas of the country is that every year we start with a zero-based budget, and we have to raise the money again. So it's not recurring dollars from the state. It's not recurring dollars from the county. So it is a little unusual. But the part that makes us unique is the part that perhaps raises our budget cost, and that's the fact that for the services we provide, with the exception of the classes in the senior center, we hire licensed credentialed professionals. And it's hard to hire everywhere. Everyone wants to work remotely. The work we do, you have to be here. So this is really the major part of our budget. Our building came in on time, on budget. It is totally paid for. We don't have a mortgage. So it's the cost of running the operation.
So the more expensive or extensive cost is because of the two pillars and because you need to hire the professionals.
Right.
That getting volunteers does not seem to be an issue. And I would think across the country.
And the volunteers are wonderful. They're wonderful.
Yes.
We couldn't do it without volunteers.
Right.
But for the clinical and the cognitive services, we choose to hire people who are licensed and credentialed.
Okay. So let's step back a little bit and talk about the fact that you have a lot of items to cover with all of the facilities that you're offering. But most senior centers don't have all of those facilities. And let's talk about the senior center part a little bit.
Good.
The kind of activities that you provide for seniors, where so we can give them some idea of how they can benefit from what is offered at their senior centers on a nationwide basis as best as you can as a professional.
You know, you summed it up with the quote you started with.
Yes.
And when I gave a little bit of the history, certainly today there are more retirees than there were decades ago. And it's important for people who have leisure time to find ways to occupy it. So there really are three main purposes for senior centers today. The most important is social connection and engagement. When I started talking about this maybe 15 years ago, and I would talk about the fact that isolation and loneliness is a greater predictor of early death, more so than cigarette smoking and obesity, people's eyes glazed over. But this changed since COVID. We all had an experience of what it was like to be isolated and lonely during COVID.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
When I started talking about this 15 years ago and I would do research, there were only a few people writing about this, doing evidence-based surveys. And everything said, data suggests, studies suggests. Today, there are pages and pages and pages of citations of people who now have proven the effects of isolation and loneliness, not just on older adults, but on everyone. There are entire departments at universities that are studying just this. So social connection and engagement, and that includes group activities, clubs, meals, trips, art, volunteer opportunities, anything that fosters friendships, community, and purpose. We all know how important it is for someone to have a purpose to life.
That's correct.
The second is health, wellness, and prevention. And here is where you promote physical health and wellness through exercise classes, lectures on chronic disease and self-management, health screenings, nutrition, and health education. The third is access to services and supports to enable someone to age in place. And aging in place is the euphemism that we in my field use for living at home and not needing to go into congregate care. And it's interesting when you study how senior centers do this, they often talk about providing information, making referrals, coordinating for home and community-based services like benefits, caregiver support, legal aid. We do that all under one roof. That's
Wow.
the piece that ties it all together.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the mental stimulation and the lifelong learning that you provide. What kind of aspects or what kind of programs do you have for that?
We have a wide variety of lectures. We have people coming in to talk about anything from reptiles in the state of Florida to healthy living through the Mediterranean diet. We have a class that's run by a volunteer who was a writer for TV. And he
Okay.
retired here and came to us and said, I'd like to volunteer. I'm not sure what to do. And we said, well, what do you like to do? He said, I like to write. I said, would you like to teach writing? So he started a class, and now he's doing 2 classes.
Wow.
We partner with the American Cancer Society. We partner with the agencies who teach about diabetes. We do rotations for nursing students and local nursing colleges to come in and do health screenings. We work on fall prevention. Case managers, one of the first things they do when they go into the home is assess it for safety for fall prevention. Many of the programs that we offer downstairs in the senior center were brought to us by volunteers. We had a volunteer come to us when we first opened the doors and said, hey, I'd like to do a drum circle. We now have 3 drum circles. One of the programs that I think is the most fun is our Hugs program. That's our happy ukulele group of strummers. We have over 60 people who play the ukulele who come here. And not only do they play the ukulele, they get new students. So they have a special hour where they teach others how to play the ukulele. And they perform concerts all over town. Some of it benefit Baker Senior Center.
Oh, it's interesting because you mentioned the ukulele, which I didn't know about, but that's how I learned to play guitar first. So I might have to come down there and see if I'm any good at this anymore.
Well, only if you're 60 and above, which I'm not sure if you are.
Well, I thank you for that. But yes, I am over 60. You probably will let me in. I don't know if you'll let me in, but
you'll have to join.
My age, you'll be able to let me in.
You'll have to join.
Okay.
Let me talk a little bit about something we just touched upon earlier, and that's membership.
Okay, I appreciate that.
That's membership. So downstairs we have members, and that's $100 to join. However, if someone doesn't have the money, we provide scholarships. Veterans get a special membership fee. Right now, that's $40.
Okay.
No one's ever turned away because of inability to pay. Upstairs, we are, for mental health counseling, we are Medicare providers, and we're on many of the insurances. Having said that, if someone comes to us without insurance, we do a sliding scale, and they pay what they can afford. Cognitive health, it's $55 a session for a 4-hour session. Here too, if someone can't afford it, they get a scholarship. No one's ever turned away because of inability to pay.
Okay. Now, let's just step aside from your wonderful facility to what other people in other parts of the United States, because that's primarily my audience, can expect, and where can they go to find a senior center? What sources can they use? And if there isn't a senior center, are there other options for them that can provide them some of those activities?
Yes. So there are 11,000 senior centers in the United States, approximately. And one need only to, in the old days, we'd say, look in the yellow pages. Today, we'll say Google or use AI to find it. There also, throughout the United States, are area agencies on aging. And they are funded nationally. And they can be resources, and they can also direct you to the place you would need to go. The model other centers use varies from center to center. Some charge a flat fee, as we do. Others may charge a nominal entrance fee, and then they charge for each program. We chose not to use that model. I'd have to hire more accounting staff. But we chose not to use that model. I'll just stop with that. But
okay,
the costs vary as each program varies. But everyone can expect to find a place to socialize, a place to probably have wellness activities. Beyond that, they're as unique as the community that they're in.
So, for example, they can contact, let's say, a house of worship, because usually they provide some kind of socialization and activities for people in their communities. So that would be
depending upon the community.
Yeah, that would be a source.
Yes.
I came up with one thing as you're speaking, and I said, you're going to cause there to be more traffic in Naples than we've had in the past, because if they hear this podcast and they say, well, there's such a great senior center in Naples, Florida, that we should probably move there. So I don't know if that's a positive thing or a negative thing right now.
Well, I recently read that people retiring here, the numbers are down. So maybe it's a good thing. I will tell you that in terms of our cognitive health services, We have had snowbirds, people who were here just for the winter season,
Yes.
decide to move here full time so that their loved ones could benefit from the cognitive health program year round.
So you're involved in advertising now for Collier County. Now, is it strictly limited to being a resident of Collier County?
Absolutely not. We have no
No,
residency requirement. We do serve people from southern Lee County.
Okay.
And the only requirement we have is that you be 60 and above.
Okay.
For the senior center, you have to be cognitively okay so that you can manage all the activities.
Well, I don't think you're going to admit me then.
Well, we would screen you, so.
That's even worse. Is there any, do you have a piece of information or a story to tell me to kind of end this podcast on a happy note, which I know is something. Oh my God,
I have hundreds of happy stories.
Okay, well, we can maybe do another podcast, you and I, about your happy stories, but I need only one.
Okay, I'm going to tell you my favorite.
Okay.
When we opened our doors 14 years ago, the first person who walked through this door was this timid woman, small in stature. You could see she was very anxious. And she walked in, like forcing herself to walk in first, because if she didn't, she wouldn't come in at all, probably. And she said to me, "This is the first time that I'll be having lunch with someone since my husband passed away 3 years ago." And she said, "I don't know a soul. He was the social butterfly." She sat down at a table. 9 other people joined. The following week, she comes in, again first. And I see her sitting at that table, and she puts a sweater over one chair, a napkin over another, tilts 2 chairs forward. And I said, "Welcome back. What are you doing?" She said, "I'm saving these seats for my friends." I said, "Your friends?" She said, "Yeah, the ones I met last week." And that is the essence of what we need to be about.
That's really wonderful. That's really wonderful. You know, you mentioned about the knitting. The one time I came to visit the senior center, your senior center, I was taken into the room where there was a knitting class. And it was interesting to me, and this would be my experience about your facility. It was, they were all maybe 13 or 14 women around a long conference table, all sitting there knitting. And they let me come in and just speak to them for a few minutes. And I would ask them what they're knitting and so on. And they were all having a good time and they were listening. And I asked them a series of questions. It was very interesting. But when I left that room, I said, this is a great thing for people, especially for a man who could take up knitting. So I think we should end on that happy note. And I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know it's been very difficult for you to connect with me.
I love talking about this. I'm so proud of what we've done to help the community. And thank you for highlighting
I just have one more short quote to read, or just a statement to read that might be helpful. But we've covered a lot of this. Senior centers are essentially community resources. They improve the well-being of older adults by offering a supportive environment for activities, services, and connections. They also serve as centers for enhancing overall health and wellness. So if you're somewhere and you don't know that there's a senior center, there are resources, as Jackie said, on the internet, on AI. And if you can't do that, just call your county office and ask them, and they will be happy to help you. All right? And I want to thank Dr. Jackie for agreeing to do the podcast. You're a charming guest, and I really appreciate your audience. I hope that the audience appreciates me as much as I do, as you do, as I do of you.
Thank you.
I'll have to cut that out, but we'll fix it up.
Okay. Good.
I'd appreciate it if you just stay on a little bit longer while we upload the podcast. I'm going to stop the recording now. And everyone else, be in good health, care about other people, And I hope to see you at our next podcast. And that concludes this episode of We Are Old, Get Over It. Thanks for joining me. I hope you found our conversation both insightful and entertaining. Remember, age is a journey, not a destination. So embrace the wrinkles, the forgetfulness, and the occasional tech frustrations with a good dose of get over it attitude. Until next time, keep laughing, keep learning, and keep getting over it. Ken out.